On this episode of Just Informed Talk, as President Trump accuses China of trying to interfere in the upcoming 2018 midterm elections, Google, Twitter, Apple, and others quietly testify before Congress about Chinese censorship and your personal data privacy. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. I always start the same way by saying thank you to all my subscribers because I'm really thankful to each and every one of you. If you haven't hit that button already, please come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button. You guys don't know how much that means. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications as well so you're notified when these videos get posted. So today's video is going to be covering all the highlights of President Trump today at the UN, at his press conference, and this hearing that was quietly held on Capitol Hill that was actually a data privacy hearing with Google, Google, Twitter, Apple, Amazon, and others. And we're going to watch highlights from that where we have some pretty great insight into what's going on, where there are some pretty tough questions asked about China and their involvement in this secret development of a censored search engine, which they were shopping to the Chinese Communist government, and the ethical questions that arise from our government, which deal with, is Google going to help China's authoritarian dictatorship commit human rights violations? That is really the question. But before we get into that, we're just going to look at a few things. So this is a tweet put out by President Trump today that underlines something that's very common, and it goes along with remarks President Trump made to the UN today at the Security Council meeting that he headed and chaired. And we're going to watch a clip from that, and we're going to watch a clip from the press conference where President Trump addressed this, and then we're going to watch clips from the congressional hearings with the representatives from Google, who have picked a great time. You know, they're really good at timing their little hearings on Capitol Hill, you know, right around the time of the Supreme Court confirmation hearings and the final hearings on that. They're in a different session that nobody even probably watched or even knew was going on, but you're going to see it here on this channel. But what this talks about is something that is very common practice for the Chinese to do. So what they'll do is this, basically. You have a newspaper, and they'll buy an advertisement space inside of that newspaper. In this instance, it's the Des Moines Register, and they'll buy that advertising space, and then they'll create an advertisement that looks like an op-ed or an editorial piece, and then they'll advertise that editorial, but it's really basically a paid-for piece that's been put in by the Chinese government. It's Chinese propaganda that's being advertised and ran in our papers, but then is being passed off basically as some sort of op-ed that's a part of the paper itself, which is very deceptive practice. And this is not the first time. This has been going on for quite some time. Actually, if you guys don't know, I encourage you to come over here and check out China Uncensored with Chris Chappell. They do an incredible job. They've been covering this for a long time, and he's done multiple reports on this. But this practice has been going on for quite some time, and it's finally coming up to the point where the president's addressing it. And in his remarks at the UN, we're going to hear where he accuses China of actually trying to meddle or interfere in the 2018 midterm elections that are coming up here. So we're going to watch that in a second. But yeah, this is basically what we're going to talk about here for now. And then obviously you can see here the AP is reporting that Trump to World said basically China is meddling in the election. This is an AP report. Let's go ahead and we'll watch the actual video. And this is the clip from the Security Council where President Trump calls out China for what they're doing in this 2018 midterm election coming up.
Regrettably, we found that China has been attempting to interfere in our upcoming 2018 election coming up in November against my administration. They do not want me or us to win because I am the first president ever to challenge China on trade. And we are winning on trade. We are winning at every level. We don't want them to meddle or interfere in our upcoming election.
So there you see President Trump calling China out right there at the UN Security Council in front of everyone, saying they are trying to interfere in the 2018 midterm elections. And that in and of itself is a huge claim. But what's it backed up by? Well, it's backed up by the evidence that we looked at in Donald Trump's Twitter earlier, President Trump's Twitter, where the Chinese are pulling these fake ad stories that they're putting into our local papers and basically misleading individuals into believing that this paper produced this article when in reality it was crafted and particularly its function was meant as propaganda produced by the Chinese government themselves. And this is not just happening in a one-off situation. This is happening in papers all across the country. From New York to LA, it is a very standard practice, and it's something that's been underreported and overlooked for so long that I think it's an incredible important point to bring up and to discuss here as we are doing here on this video. Now, that being said, the next thing we're going to watch is President Trump at his press conference today. Now, President Trump held a very long, it was about an hour and 20-minute press conference where he took questions from everyone about everything. One of the questions was about China, and President Trump gave another very, very enlightening answer. So we're going to watch that right now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier today and just now, you made a significant allegation against the Chinese government. You suggested that the Chinese had meddled in or are meddling.
That's right.
In
That's
the
what I hear.
2018 midterm election.
That's what I hear.
What evidence do you have of that, sir? Is there a national
We have
intelligence
evidence.
estimate,
We
for
have
example, that
evidence.
you're
It'll
prepared
come
to
out.
put forward?
Yeah, I can't tell you now, but it didn't come out of nowhere, that I can tell you. Now,
Why
if
make
you,
the
they've
charge
actually admitted that they're going after farmers. I mean, I think most of you can cover that. I like that you're shaking your head. Yes, I'm going to ask you the next question because of that, okay? It's probably going to be the killer of all questions. But
Why
let me
make the
just
charge
explain.
now if you're not
Let
prepared
me.
to come forward with the evidence, sir?
China now, we put on $250 billion, and they're paying 25% on that. They're paying billions and billions. This has never happened to China. And I like China, and I like President Xi a lot. I think he's a friend of mine. He may not be a friend of mine anymore, but I think he probably respects. From what I hear, if you look at Mr. Pillsbury, the leading authority on China, he was on a good show, I won't mention the name of the show, recently, and he was saying that China has total respect for Donald Trump and for Donald Trump's very, very large brain. He said, Donald Trump, they don't know what to do. Never happened. Well, one thing they are trying to do is they're trying to convince people to go against Donald Trump, because a normal, regular political person that has no concept of what the hell he's doing would let China continue to take $500 billion a year out of our country and rebuild their country. I mean, they were building 29 massive bridges, like the George Washington Bridge. They're building things that we don't build anymore, but we're starting to build them again. And our economy now is hotter than it's ever been. I don't know if you saw the confidence levels this morning that just came out. Fantastic. And in all fairness to the Fed raising rates, they're raising rates because we've never done like we're doing now.
And there you see it again with President Trump pointing out the fact that look at what we've done in our setup with China and this lopsided trade deficit where we're losing billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to them. It cannot go on because they're siphoning the money out of our country and they're rebuilding their own country. When President Trump points to infrastructure projects like these massive bridges that are being made and these huge infrastructure initiatives that are being taken over in China, there's a stark contrast between that and what's going on here in our country where, we're cutting funding and we can't even, get the streets in order in some of these cities and towns. And we really have to focus on what does it mean to expand America? What does it mean to make America great again? And in my opinion, what it's going to take is a more robust spending plan, especially when it comes to infrastructure. But it's also going to take the American people recognizing the true threat that the authoritarian regime in China presents to our nation existentially, basically, as a whole. Because if you think about what they're doing with big tech, that is where we have to make a focused effort to combat this type of authoritarian regime from coming in and trying to subvert these institutions which have grown and developed inside of our country. They've used American taxpayer dollars for who knows how long, and they've been probably secretly funded to a huge degree from intelligence agencies and other organizations. So to me, when you look at Google and Twitter and Amazon and Apple, and they're on Capitol Hill today testifying, all you have to do is listen to some of these cross examinations. I'm going to play two in particular today. I'm going to play one where a senator from Colorado, Senator Cory Gardner, actually does a great little line of questioning with the folks from the big tech, and of course Ted Cruz, who does the best job, I think, of cross-examining the testifying witnesses there who are there on behalf of the big tech corporations. You know, the lawyers who show up to basically swiftly try to talk their way out of any type of actual culpability. So that's just what I'm going to cover today, but it all stems out of this. So we have to remember, we have this right here. This is a ex-Google employee who has called, actually wrote a letter to Congress talking about the fact that he was working on a project at Google called Project Dragonfly. And what was Project Dragonfly? Well, it was Google's secret project to develop a censored search product, search engine for China. Now, what did that entail? Well, that entailed giving China access to people's information. Now, what does that mean? Think about this. You know how here in the United States we have privacy. We have the expectation of privacy to where a company like Google can't just take our information and give it to so-and-so. But they can now with certain ways that the laws have been written and the way that they've been exempted from any type of culpability in handling that data. And they've exhibited it that they don't really care about whose data they give it to, or who they give your data to. Although there are some policies that are written in that would prevent them from doing anything too extreme. Plus you have the protections of the Constitution, the protections of the Bill of Rights. So in China, they don't have that. And the fear really is that China is lobbying Google to make a search engine that is one of the most powerful search engines you could imagine, that could also take, basically uncover the identities of people who are political dissidents, even people who are being religiously persecuted in that country can be targeted through this search engine's ability to go back and expose personal identifying information. And that's exactly what the testimony on Capitol Hill is going over. And that's what this guy, Jack Paulson actually resigned in protest of from Google. And we covered this before here on the channel, but the story is continuing to evolve as he's basically written a letter to Congress, and they've called these hearings now where they're actually talking about data privacy, but they're talking about it in a way that actually makes us really, really look in hard detail at what Google is considering doing by moving over into China. So let's go ahead and take a second, and we're going to watch these basically we're going to watch Google dodge a bunch of questions about China, but they're good questions, and they're very much meant to be the beginning of the conversation, I believe, and we'll see when we hear from Cory Gardner and Ted Cruz about exactly what their line of questioning goes into, which is just, it's very on point. It's asking very pointed questions like, why is it okay that the majority of people at Google would rather work for China, or would rather not work with the United States than to work with China and their authoritarian regime? You know, that kind of stuff. And when I say the United States, I mean the United States military, and we're talking more specifically about Project Maven, which a lot of people inside of Google protested, and then they actually ended up denying to help the U.S. military, which is just unfathomable to me, even though they are and I'm doing air quotes, private company. But we all know where they got their start. We all know Google is connected directly to DARPA. And we all know that the United States government put millions, if not billions of dollars into this company. So it would only be fair to say that we're all stakeholders in the Google as it is today, because it came from our country. It came from our proverbial loins here in America. We created this. It was our freedom. It was our great country and its incredible institutions that allowed the individuals who started it to do it, and not to mention they probably had a lot of help along the way. And I think we all know what that's referring to. But let's watch these two cross examinations where basically just really great stuff happening. So let's listen.
Thank you, Chairman Thune, and thanks to the witnesses for your time and testimony today. Mr. Tribble, on one hand, I was pleased to see a recent news article that highlighted Apple's decision to use the Taiwan's flag, and the name Taiwan in your latest product release last week. On the other hand, however, Apple has previously furthered China's anti-Taiwan propaganda, including through its software. For example, news reports revealed that Taiwan's flag emoji was not accessible for iOS users located in mainland China. This follows other instances of complying with Chinese demands, including removal of VPN apps on the App Store, forced data localization, and the potential for Chinese government access to sensitive personal information about dissidents and ethnic minorities. Does Apple consider the safeguarding of human rights or protection against government oppression when developing your software?
Thank you, Senator. We make our products for customers, not countries. And our values and beliefs, including privacy and security, don't change from country to country. And the privacy is one of our central values. And this is why we apply practices to protect our customers in China and throughout the world. We make sure...
I'm going to have to cut you short because I'm going to try to get through a lot here. Are those principles and the process for their consideration formalized in public?
Well, we have a major section of our website that goes through our privacy principles and examples of how we employ those principles.
Mr. DeVore, Amazon maintains operations in mainland China, albeit in a limited manner in accordance with Chinese law. Do you believe Amazon is operating under the same circumstances today that the company expected to operate under when you entered China several years ago?
No, Senator.
Has Amazon relinquished full control of its cloud-based assets in China in order to comply with recent changes to Chinese law? And as a result, does a particular Chinese company now have access to all related data Amazon previously stored and maintained on those assets in China?
Thank you, Senator. The answer to that question is also no.
To both those questions?
I'm sorry?
To both questions.
That's right.
Relinquished full control, answer is no.
That's right.
And no company in China has access to all related data Amazon previously stored and maintained on those assets in China.
Yeah, just to be very clear, so we're absolutely committed to security, particularly with regard to our cloud products. In order to operate in China, we are required by Chinese law to operate through a 100% owned Chinese subsidiary. So it does function.
And that Chinese subsidiary does not have data Amazon previously stored and maintained on those assets in China?
Just very simply, the way the AWS services work is that they're for the customer, the entirety of the product service. So the customer gets an instance, and they have control over that instance and the data.
The Chinese company does?
No, the customers do.
Okay, and so the Chinese company does not have any access to that data?
The way the system is built is designed to give customers absolute control over their data. That's structurally, that's the way it works everywhere.
So the Chinese
As I
company
mentioned,
doesn't
the structure
have that
of the business in China is different.
So we can talk about that further, but you're saying that the answer is no. The data Amazon previously stored is not in the hands of that 100% Chinese-owned company.
I'll try to be as clear as I can, Senator. The way that the system works is that data is actually controlled by the individual customers. That's the premise of the operation. The company is structured differently in China, and so we are operating in China through the subsidiary that I identified.
We'll continue that if we could outside of the hearing. Mr. Enright, Google made headlines in 2010 when the company made the decision to withdraw search engine services in China rather than comply with new Chinese censorship laws. Recent news reports, however, indicate that Google may be rethinking that decision. I understand you're unlikely to comment on those reports today, but you joined Google in 2011, shortly after that decision. In a 2015 speech at an International Association of Privacy Professionals event in Singapore, you said that the Asia-Pacific region was on the cusp of a tremendous opportunity to build a set of privacy laws and regulations that could foster, quote, economic, social, and public benefits that can be realized from data and data-driven technologies. Since you joined Google in 2011, and since that 2015 speech, do you believe that China's privacy laws and regulations have shifted in a direction that fosters such greater global engagement and economic opportunity?
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. I have not seen legislative or regulatory developments in China that I think would fundamentally shift my assessment.
So the answer is no. The answer is no. Thank you. In that same speech, you said that your trips to places including Beijing and Shanghai, quote, established a commitment that me and my team would always remain closely engaged with our Asian colleagues to ensure that the evolution of Google's privacy program would remain sensitive to and informed by the perspectives from these important markets. Could you explain to the committee what you meant when you said that Google's privacy program would remain sensitive to perspectives from countries like China, who are major markets in the Asia-Pacific region?
Yes, Senator. Consistent with my prior remarks and with my remarks at the event you referenced in Singapore, and consistent with our values as an organization where right from our founding mission to organize the world's mission and make it universally accessible and useful, we design and launch products with an eye towards making the benefits of technology available as broadly around the world as we can. Expansion in APAC generally, in the Singapore market and in other areas where I was speaking, remains important. That said, as I had said earlier, I'm not aware of any plans that we are near to launching or close to launching a search product in China, nor do I think that we could or would launch a product without having our privacy controls thoroughly engaged, our privacy program actively involved, and any product that we launch anywhere in the world is going to reflect our values and the commitments that we've made to our users.
Mr. Enright, I'm very concerned about how people in China and other places where there are oppressive regimes will have access to technology that may change their lives, shift their lives when millions of people are imprisoned in political camps, internment camps, re-education centers because of their minority status or because of their religion. Churches are being bulldozed. I think it's very important that we have an open internet and that we continue that and that we use this great tool of freedom and democracy around the globe, and we have those values in U.S. Available to humans around the globe to provide and promote human dignity. Countries like China present major market opportunities for U.S. companies. I understand that. It's important to gain a foothold, boost revenue, and compete against other national companies, particularly those owned by China. But countries like China also have records littered with cracking down on dissidents, moving the goalposts for companies locating in their country, stifling free speech, and perpetrating human rights abuses against their own citizens. So American technology companies interested in growth abroad continue to find themselves in this very unenviable position of either having to defy local laws or having to provide hostile governments access to sensitive and personal information about their own citizens. Make no mistake, countries like China are already forcing companies, as we've heard today, to make these decisions, and as we've heard from many of you on this panel. For decades, the U.S. has shown as a beacon of freedom and democracy, opportunity across the world. American companies help us carry that banner and those values to every corner of this globe. And I hope we can continue to work with all of you to discuss the challenges that we've covered today, to tackle these challenges and make sure that we get back to the day that our values carry the day as the world decides whether the path to prosperity runs through China or runs through the United States.
So there you heard Cory Gardner, the representative out of Colorado, make his case for why China's record of human rights abuse and authoritarian, control of information really is cause to worry, is at least cause to take a second and pause and look at what's going on here and re-examine what Google's doing and other companies are doing when they're getting involved with China and they're just going headfirst in, where China has these rules that are actually anti-American. And when I say anti-American, I mean unconstitutional. So there you go. Now let's listen to Senator Ted Cruz. Now he's got an incredible take on this, and I really want you guys to hear what he has to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to the witnesses. Mr. Enright, I want to go back to the topic that a couple of other senators raised with you, which is China. After a cyber attack compromised the Gmail accounts of dozens of Chinese human rights advocates, Google decided in March of 2010 to shut down its operations in China. At the time, Google released a statement that said, quote, "We want as many people in the world as possible to have access to our services, including users in mainland China. Yet the Chinese government has been crystal clear throughout our discussions that self-censorship is a non-negotiable legal requirement." Despite taking this principled stand in 2010, it's been reported last month that Google has been secretly developing a search engine for China as part of a project known as Dragonfly. Are those reports accurate?
Senator, thank you for the question. As we've said, I'm aware of those reports. I need to be clear for the record that my understanding is that we are not close to launching a search product in China, and whether we eventually could or would remains unclear.
Is there a Project Dragonfly, and if there is, what is it?
We have an array of internal projects, and I wouldn't think that it was necessarily appropriate for a privacy conversation to speculate as to what we might be looking at in terms of a product launch in some part of the world.
So you're not answering my question then on Project Dragonfly?
There is a Project Dragonfly.
And it's focused on a search engine in China, is that accurate?
There is no, we are not close to launching a search product.
You're saying you're not close to launching. I'm asking, is the topic of Project Dragonfly, is it a project to develop a search engine in China? I didn't ask timing of launch. I asked what it is.
Understood. I am not clear on the contours of what is in scope or out of scope for that project, but I can say that if we were close to launching a search product in China, myself and my team would be very actively engaged to ensure that it was going through the appropriate privacy review process and that it was consistent with our privacy values and the commitments that we've made to our users.
In your opinion, does China engage in censoring its citizens?
As the privacy representative for Google, I'm not sure that I have an informed opinion on that question.
It's also been reported that more than 3,100 Google employees sent a letter to Google's CEO earlier this year protesting the company's work on Project Maven, a Pentagon pilot program aimed at speeding up the Defense Department's use of artificial intelligence technologies. Likewise, 1,400 Google employees signed a letter last month protesting Google's plans to create a censored search engine for China. Mr. Enright, you've worked for Google since 2011. Does it concern you that more than twice as many employees at Google have protested working with the U.S. military than have protested creating a censored search engine for China?
Senator, I take a great deal of pride in the fact that Google is an organization that allows employees to voice their opinions, including opinions about product strategy, product decisions, right up to the senior-most leadership of the organization. As to Project Maven, again, my understanding is that there was internal concern raised. Employees were given a voice. There was a significant internal discussion around the project. It ultimately affected the strategic direction of leadership. And while Google continues to commit to meeting the responsibilities of our initial Maven contract, and we're continued to work with the United States government, the Department of Defense in certain areas, including cybersecurity, healthcare, and productivity. But we are focusing on making sure that our collaborations with the government are consistent with our core values.
Let me try again, because your answer didn't answer my question. Does it concern you that more than twice as many Google employees expressed concern about working with the U.S. military as did concern about being complicit in China censoring its citizens?
It encourages me that Google is a place where employees are able to voice those kinds of concerns about projects that they want to ensure are consistent with our values.
Do Google search results as a systemic matter tend to favor one political party over another?
No, sir. We build products for everyone, and in my experience, I see no evidence of bias in the way that our products or services operate.
Okay, so you gave a categorical answer, no, they don't favor one party over the other. What is the basis for that answer? Upon what data do you rely?
The basis for that answer, Senator, is my own experience and my own understanding of our products. I have not reviewed data, so I'm...
Does Google assess whether its search results are biased in favor of one political party or another?
My understanding, again, as a privacy executive for Google, so we're stepping outside of my core domain here, but my understanding is that one of the paramount design decisions for our engineering teams in our many products is that we are designing for everyone.
Okay,
and that we are
Mr. Enright, we're
designing
having a
products
problem
fairly.
with answering the question. I asked if Google assesses this question. If you studied, I can tell you millions of Americans, I can tell you millions of Texans believe that big tech companies are actively censoring the speech of American citizens and are silencing the voices of conservatives. One of the frustrating things about this issue is there's almost no transparency. There are almost no public data to assess if that's accurate or not. So my question is Google analyzing the question? Is Google actually looking, not your own personal experiences searching, but are you assessing it empirically? Upon what data do you make testimony in this committee that Google is not favoring in its search results one party over another or one candidate over another?
As the Chief Privacy Officer of Google, this is not within my core domain, so I can only speak to my own experience and the things that are my responsibilities within the organization. But within my purview, I have never seen any evidence of bias, and I consistently see a commitment.
Okay, I'm going to try just one more time. Are you aware of any efforts of Google to assess whether search results have a political bias? Don't give me a statement they don't have a bias. Are you aware of efforts to actually empirically assess and determine it?
As Chief Privacy Officer of Google, I am not aware of such efforts.
Thank you.
So there you have it. Ted Cruz calling it like it is. Love to see him up there grilling them, but it goes so much deeper than that simple line of questioning. But you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. We'll have to take this one step at a time. And the reality is that what we're looking at with the scale and scope of this all is beyond anything that we've ever dealt with in the history of our entire existence. So we're going to have to figure out new and clever and intelligent ways to deal with this and to entice these companies to come back and basically show them that what they're getting involved with China is way worse than they could even imagine, even though they're very willing, it seems, to just sell us out to the highest bidder when it comes to our privacy and our American values that we are built upon. But that is for another day, I guess. But here we go. That's pretty much going to wrap everything up. But if you want to stick around for one more second, I got a couple more announcements. If you guys want to help out the channel, the best way to do it is to come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. Helps the channel out more than you know. And I can't say how thankful I am to each and every one of you who've come and hit that button. Also, come watch these videos. I didn't do this at the beginning, but if you don't know what QAnon is, you can come here and get a good refresher on QAnon. I know we didn't talk about it in this video, but it ties into everything that we just covered here, and this channel's got a lot of Q information, and once you learn about QAnon, you can watch all the latest videos to get your latest Q updates, which basically, if you want the news before it comes out, next month's news today, next year's news today, you can come here and get a taste of that. But other than that, we're always covering all topics, and that includes what we covered today. So that really helps. And also, please leave your thoughts, theories, and insights down in the comments, because I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this whole Google thing. I'm sure we'll see a lot more coming out of this in the future. But for now, that's pretty much going to tie everything together. Also, you can come help me out by finding me over here on Twitter at Justin_formed. Again, that's Justin_formed at Twitter. And yeah, you guys can come give me a follow. Check out the content here. You can check out my tweets. The latest poll I ran was asking if you guys believe Rod Rosenstein should be forced to resign or fired. And not shockingly, the majority of you said yes. And it was only in response to a Reuters poll that just came out saying only 1 in 5 adults want Rosenstein to leave. So I figured I'd run my own poll, and it's little bit different results, but that's the way polls go, right? Also, don't forget to go check out justinformednews.com. Check out the news stories that are always getting posted over here, and let me know what you think of the website. Again, that's justinformednews.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk YouTube channel, and you can get more talk here, as you can come read my articles, and this one's a great one. You guys need to see this. There's some really suspicious circumstances around this young lady's death, lobbyists in D.C., and just so many more stories you can get over here. That really helps out the channel when you go check it out. Now, 2 more ways you can help out the channel are both financial. The first way is to come over here to Patreon. That's patreon.com. And when you come here, you can search Just Informed Talk. And once you search Just Informed Talk, you come here, click this button, become a patron. It's a monthly donation, and I say it every time, but it's so true. You guys are what make this channel possible. And when you come over here and support the channel on Patreon, you can give as little as $1 or as much as you want on a monthly basis. You can set it and forget it, and it allows me to do this 24/7, 365, regardless of what happens with YouTube and their whole demonetization. So you guys are what make this channel possible by coming over here and getting it going on the crowdfunding site Patreon. If you're not into the whole monthly donation, I totally understand. That's why I set up this GoFundMe. It's gofundme.com/just-informed. And when you come here, you just click the donate button. You can make an anonymous donation and a one-time donation. So that's definitely another tool for you guys if you guys want to get involved and help out the channel your own way. Now, that being said, we're going to take 1 minute here at the end to talk about something that's incredibly important. And as always, it's God's grace and how it's greater. So with that, I want to talk about a verse that I found here, and it's in the book of Titus, and it's in chapter 2, verse 11, and it just talks about what the grace of God really means. And I just thought these words were so appropriate, especially given what we talk about at the end of each one of these episodes is the grace of God and how it's greater. So it says, "For the grace of God has appeared with salvation for all people, instructing us to deny godlessness and worldly lusts, and to live in a sensible, righteous, and godly way in the present age, while we wait for the blessed hope and the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior Jesus Christ. He gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness and to cleanse for himself a special people eager to do good works. Say these things and encourage and rebuke all with all authority. Let no one disregard you." Do you see what I draw from that is just so powerful. It's saying the grace of God, when it appears to us, is that salvation. That is the grace of God coming into our hearts, and that we should live a life where we deny godlessness and we deny worldly lusts, and we do our best to focus on the most important thing, and that is honoring God, living a life for God. Like I've said, I have a prayer I say all the time. Maybe this will help you out. I just say, God, make me the man I'm supposed to be for you. Make me the best man I can be for you. Make me your most humble of servants in every way possible. And I say, God, make me the man that you deserve. Because I know that by saying that prayer, I'll become the man that my family deserves. And I'll become the man that you guys out there, the audience, deserves, and that people in my community deserve. Because that, to me, is the salvation, one of the saving graces of our salvation is that we live an honorable life, that we live a life of goodness, and that we deny evil and we embrace what is good. And that is what we have to live for ourselves every single day. So whether you're in your own situation, you're having a tough time, whether it's with work or family or friends or whatever, just remember, living a godly life, becoming closer to God will only make you a better man or woman for your friends and for your family and for this whole world. So embracing God is a way to embrace life. And never ever forget that. And don't forget that Jesus died on the cross for your sins so that you may have eternal salvation in heaven. And all you have to do is say a prayer and open your heart and repent fully, and you can be saved as well. So that's where I'll leave it. I want to say thank you for watching. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, now's a great time to do it. Let me know what you think about this episode down in the comments, because I really appreciate you guys coming by here. But that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.